We're all joining. We're all joining.
Hi, everyone. We're just getting set up on the YouTube. So it'll be the YouTube because that's what we call it now. So just a second as we get sorted.
Showing live. Hello to everyone who is coming in. We are live. Thank you all for joining us today. Hope you all are having a good Sunday. I have snow. I need to just share this with the internet because I'm in the South. So I have snow and I'm excited.
That's crazy. If it makes you feel better, here in Oakland, California, it is sunny and in the low.
No, that doesn't. I love inclement. I love inclement weather. Apparently there's a word for it. It's called chinophile or something, CHINOPHILE. A coworker, someone who used to report to me, found it for me because snow, rain, sleet, not so much hail because car damage, but I love inclement weather.
Oh, nice. Yeah, not about the life, so.
At the moment, we have all of you muted for the beginning. Thank you. Is it Challen? See heart CH?
It's pronounced Challen, just like challenge with double GE.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Me too. That's what I thought. I don't feel alone anymore.
Hello to everyone coming in. Almost good because we have screens like wowzers.
Yes. And people.
Feel free to use the chat to tell us where you're joining from while we're waiting for everybody to come in.
Yes, I see South Florida.
I see Fran. The Bay Area.
Ontario. London, excuse me.
Ontario?
London, not Canada.
I was like, wait, what? Missouri.
Oh my goodness.
DC, New Jersey, San Jose, also San Jose, California.
Hey.
Japan.
Japan.
First time being from Japan. Thank you for that. Manchester, UK. Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. Maso Indigenous Lands, now La Cruz. Thank you for that Native Land Rights acknowledgement. Yay, I see somebody from Seattle, my old stomping ground. Hey,
I see a whole bunch of East Coasters up in this piece. Hi, y'all.
I see a Detroit, Michigan, Maryland, another Seattle, Maria French. Oh, hey, Maria.
This is great. We're getting people in. And people will still, if you all can hear the notification, this is going to be going on for probably the first 30 minutes or so as people come in. So
I actually turned off the chimes so that it wouldn't distract.
Oh, so now I really have to pay attention.
Yeah, we'll get a little notification. I think we should
okay.
I think we should get started. So just for your benefit, Isis and Tati, I can't see the participants or the chat or anything like that. So if you can monitor that, that would be great.
I'm looking at it. I know Carolyn or Caroline, I don't know if you accidentally raised your hand. If you have a comment, you can drop it in the chat and then we can see it there since participants are mute right now. So lower your hand.
All right, everyone.
I think you're muted, Isis. Okay, there we go.
I didn't know.
Okay. I think we're ready to go. Are we good? Isis?
Yes.
Tati?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Hello and Happy New Year, because this is the first time I'm going to stop clapping over my mic. This is the first time that we have seen you since the year turned. We're now in 2021, and it's really, really great to be back and to have all of you here for the Octavia E. Butler Slow Read. For those of you who have been with us since the very beginning, hello, Aislinn from Ireland. We are here for the very third time. We are here to talk about Mind of My Mind, the second book in the Patternist series by Octavia Butler. And it's amazing to be here with all of you. So I'm going to do what I have done in the past and share my screen so that you can see the presentation. And hello to everybody who is participating through the chat on YouTube as well.
I think there's something, I'm not able to chat on YouTube.
Okay.
So there may be an issue with that. I don't think it's something that you necessarily did. It may be an issue with YouTube. So for the 17 people who are in the chat, we want to acknowledge you and know that we see you. We just can't see what you're saying just yet. We'll try and figure that out.
Okay. During one of the breaks, we can see what's going on there.
Yeah.
All right. So can you see just the presentation?
Yes.
And not the desktop? Okay.
Sorry to interrupt y'all. Someone said that the chat is disabled on YouTube.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll figure it out during a break.
Okay, thanks. All right, everyone, as I mentioned, hello and welcome to the Octavia E. Butler Slow Read, where we're going to be discussing Mind of My Mind. And Tati, can you read the dedication?
Sure can. Our dedication today is, again, to the wonderful Octavia Estelle Butler. You wrote for our freedom. You wrote for freedom, yours and ours. We honor this when we read slowly, luxuriously, and collectively, exactly as you had imagined. We are your legacy.
And Isis?
So hey, I will walk us through the agenda. So we'll start with the welcome. So that's what we're doing now. Tati just read us the dedication. And then Jerry will go through the book agreement, the group agreement. Then we'll do the book chat. So each host will respond to Mind of Our Mind, and then we'll have our breakout room discussions. Then we'll engage as a group. So we'll have a sound circle and then our very famous group selfies. Then we'll have discussions on activities happening next, announcements, and prize winners, which the prize will be a SistahSciFi gift card. So that is the agenda for today. I'm super excited.
As you know, we're here collectively making space together. We're from all over the place, all over the world, but we are a community for the next couple of hours. So we've put together a set of agreements that we would like everybody to follow while we're sharing space together, and I'm going to go through them right now. So of course, as we know, this is a quote that is attributed to Laura Olamina, one of the characters, the protagonist in Parable of the Sower. And through her, we hear Octavia say, all that you touch, you change. And all that you change changes you. And that's true. We're changing each other in this space. We're touching each other in this space. We will be sharing our thoughts, our emotions, maybe life experiences. And that's a really important and vulnerable thing to do. So in order to make sure that this space is as safe as we can make it, we ask you to be mindful of these 4 things. First, please center Black, Indigenous, and people of color voices. The voices of Black, Indigenous, and people of color will be centered in this space. Octavia Butler was very mindful to ensure that the standpoint of Black women in particular were central to all of her works. And as 3 Black women doing this work and bringing us all together, it's very important, especially at this historical moment, that our voices and the voices of Black folks, other folks, Indigenous folks, and people of color are centered in this space. What that looks like will be different depending on which space we're in, whether it's in the chat or in the group discussion, but please do keep that in mind. Secondly, please speak mindfully. So make sure that you are sharing space. Some of us are very comfortable talking in front of a camera and talking in a group. Some of us might not be as comfortable. So please be mindful when you're in the space to share it in a way that supports other people also communicating in the way that works best for them. Some folks will be communicating in chat only. So please do take the time to read what others are saying in the chat while we're having the discussion and integrate those comments as much as possible. Third, hatred will not be tolerated. Propagators of racism, transphobia, and other forms of hatred will be removed. No questions asked. All of the moderators and the facilitators will be prepared to exit anybody who perpetuates oppressive commentary or behavior during the time that we're here together, and you will not be allowed back in the chat or in any future OEB Slow Read live shows. Share responsibly. We encourage you to tell people that you're participating in the OEB Slow Read and to record your experience within yourself. But if you feel like you want to take a screenshot or you want to use any of the footage, please ask before you do so. And on that note, we will, oops, I haven't started that yet. 1 second. Just gonna stop sharing for a second so that I can press record. Okay, now I'll share again. Okay, can you just see the screen? Okay, so we are now recording. So this will be recorded. So if you are speaking and we are on speaker view, then your face will show up and you will be recorded. The recording is going to be living on YouTube. So make choices about whether or not you'd like your face to show up. And that is it. So those are our group agreements. Yes. So if you are unable to participate in any of those group agreements, then we just invite you to self-select out now, but we're assuming that if you're staying, that means that you will be agreeing to what I've just shared with you. All right, so a few things to note before we start. First of all, please have your book ready and any notes. Toward the end of the live show, we will be taking a selfie of everyone who wants to be photographed with your book. So please make sure you have that nearby or within reach. Second, as you know, we are going to be doing the sound circle again at the end of our live show, and we are going to be inviting you to read your favorite excerpt or a couple of your favorite excerpts. So please get those ready so that you can participate in the sound circle. And we encourage everybody to do so. Third, and this is very important, we are operating under the assumption that everybody has read Mind of My Mind. So there will be no spoiler warnings or anything like that. Assume that we will be talking about everything that happened in the story and probably referencing things that happened in Wild Seed. So there will be spoilers. Adjust accordingly. And of course, we are all here as a community. So if you notice something, whether you notice somebody screen sharing or somebody saying something in the chat, please just find a way to reach out to Tatiana, Isis, or myself, and we will respond, because we might not always catch things right away. And that's it for me. Tati?
Currently, we are reading the Patternist series. We are reading this not in publication order, but in story order. So the first was Wild Seed, and we had our discussion of that in November. Wow. And here we are in January discussing Mind of My Mind. So our next read, and if you finished or got part of the way through Mind of My Mind, then hopefully you are as excited about us reading Clay's arc next as I am. I'm just really excited to see where we go from here. And then after Clay's arc is Survivor, which is a novel that is out of print. And Octavia Butler expressed the desire at the time for Survivor to just be stricken from the record. However, it is available. And if everyone can get their hands on it, we would like to read it. So just so that you are aware, if you have not checked out SistahSciFi yet, it is available on ebook or as an ebook on SistahSciFi for $10, Isis. Is that correct? For $10 for the ebook digital download. So by all means, you have time, because Clay's arc is next. So you have time to go and purchase and download that, so that when it's time for the reading of that, we'll do a poll or something to see where everyone is, if everyone has it, as to whether or not we will include that as part of our official slow read schedule. Did I miss anything?
Nope.
Okay.
Oh. Anybody? Okay. Thanks, Tati. Isis?
Okay, so Mind of My Mind in brief. So this is from the book back, 4,000 years, an immortal has spread the seeds of a master race, using the downtrodden as his private breeding stock. Now a young ghetto telepath has found a way to awaken and rule her superhuman kind, igniting a psychic battle as she challenges her creator for the right to free her people. So that is the book back summary of Mind of My Mind, which we'll be discussing today.
So I think where we are right now is where we each share our, not on Wild Seed, where we each share our thoughts about Mind of My Mind. I'm going to ask Tati and Isis if you two can go first. I'm going to turn off the screen share and see if I can fix the chats on YouTube. Okay?
Okay. Isis, do you want to go first this time? I think I went first last time.
Okay, I will go first. I really enjoyed Mind of My Mind. I enjoyed it with the read-alongs and so forth. Like, I have a deeper appreciation of it. I think the first time I read it, I was like, wait, what happened to all the coolness that I loved in Wild Seed? And Mind of My Mind felt like a deep departure. This time I just had more appreciation for Mary's journey, the start of the Patternist series, and etc. I also got a chance, just kind of talking about it on Instagram, and then Jerry had a couple slides on the different book covers to think about the evolution of the book covers for Mind of My Mind. And there's also on the Portalist a good article on the evolution of Octavia Butler's book covers in general. So I just put in the chat a questionnaire on what is your favorite Mind of My Mind book cover. And I have them all on a slide that I'll share now, if everything should be seamless. So, sharing the wrong thing. Please hold.
I think for the doc, we need permission.
Oh, okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Let me, one, stop sharing, and then two, do the permissions. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, so now you should be able to have permissions for the questionnaire. Let me know if that's not working. And I'll share my screen so people can see the different book covers. Here we go. Okay, so on my screen, you should see the history of Mind of Mine book covers, starting from the initial publication. And can you see the covers? Okay.
Yes.
Starting
Sorry,
from the,
I am
That's okay.
multi-reading.
I'm not saying anything. Starting from the initial publication by Doubleday, 1977, where you have the red hair and that telepathic ability shooting out of her mind. That's also what's on the shirt. To the most current one, most recent one in 2000 by Grand Central. There's also 2015 that's not a book cover per se, but it's the cover art that's associated with the Audible book. And everything in between. What I noticed about the kind of the development of the covers is that the first two are definitely more racially ambiguous. We have the second one where, you know, we see a Mary with green eyes. And then starting, I couldn't find the date and the publisher for the third one, but starting with the third one, it becomes clear that there's a central protagonist who is a Black woman. And you have the most recent one where it's not only Black, but it seems more emblematic of Egyptian and African ancestry. So still giving people a chance to vote and put in their comments. How ready are we to look at, like, if I could get, Tati, have you been able to, because everybody else is on, respond to the survey? I'll flip over to the survey.
Hold on just a moment. I have not responded yet. Do you want to know what my favorite is?
You can tell us, you can respond in the survey.
You want me to just tell you? My favorite is actually the 2015 cover, just because of I love the, I don't know, it's like, it's gritty. I love the grittiness of it. And yeah.
No, I like that one too. Oddly enough, I mean, despite its racial ambiguity, I like the 1978 one because it highlights all the themes of the book. You see Larkin House at the bottom, like the lines kind of like show her, like her connection to the pattern master. I think in the description, they describe Mary as having like interesting looking eyes. I don't know why they give her like greenish skin in the cover, but
I never realized Larkin House.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, oh, I think that's Larkin House. Like, I'm like, it speaks to a lot of the themes in the book. So for that reason, I prefer it. If it was pure art, I may probably choose the 1994 one, but like for like, oh, that like, I feel like it gives me pictures of like stuff I saw in the book, I choose that one. So yay, we have 29 responses. Let's see what other people thought. So most people look like they like the most current one, the Grand Central 2020. That happens, followed by a close tie, the 1978, the second one. And going back, So that's this one, which is also one of my favorites. Hopefully I didn't influence anybody. This first one is my answer. I was just testing the link. Somebody liked the aesthetic of the design, 1970 sci-fi and the classic vibe. The profile with the raised arms makes her look powerful, so that would be the 2021. The colors, the retro sci-fi chic. So thank you for letting us, giving us your answer and letting us know why. We'll continue to get the responses, but it looks like it's a tie between the second one and the most current one. So that was my fun and kind of like discussing the book cover. Enjoyed the book and looking forward to discussing it more with the group in more detail. So that was my response to Mind of My Mind. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Tati and Jerry.
All right, and it will be me. And I'm actually gonna set myself, I'm timing myself so that I don't go over. Okay, there are some things that happen in Mind of My Mind that changed drastically what I thought the first time that I read this, and I got a chance in reading it a second time to think about and notice these things more closely, how I thought the story was going to go for Mind of My Mind. The first main thing that I learned or I see is that whereas in Wild Seed, I was looking for Anyanwu to be the main character, it's freaking Doro. And those of you who have been here before know I despise Doro. But also in looking at the characters that are brought up in the story, and also how Octavia Butler brought all of this together, because she does something very interesting with her sequels. They're generational sequels. They're not necessarily picking up exactly where the first book left off. We go a few years into the future, and whether those years are a decade or two or a century or two, and to have that much time jump from book 1 to book 2, yet Doro and Anyanwu are still present and still dealing with their actual conflict. Well, it's not a conflict anymore because Anyanwu bowed, but that's a whole nother discussion. Still dealing with that, and Doro is still at work. He's still hard at work attempting to make this master race of his own, this master community, so that he can basically chill out. And what I enjoyed about this story is finding Doro on the outside looking in for a lot of what transpires. We're no longer just getting Doro's perspective and Anyanwu's perspective. The entire trajectory of Doro's plan has shifted. And I think it speaks a lot to how we attempt, when we're doing our own things, to bring other people into things that we're doing. And sometimes those things shift the more people that we bring into them, and it shifts in ways that we don't expect to happen. And we have to figure out how to adjust and still keep going with what we have. And I enjoyed the change that we saw in Doro. I did not enjoy the change that we see in Emma, because number one, Anyanwu's name is now Emma. Number two, we only see Emma, I want to say, about 3 times in the entirety of this story. And I still wanted more. And if you finish the story, we all know how the freaking story ends. I'm going to try not to cuss on this part of it. We all see how it ends. And so then I get to the end and I'm like, dog foot it. Like there's no redemption arc for Anyanwu stepping up and having her own, being her own on her own. But we also have just a tad bit of hope, because there's a change in the community that is taking place with Mary at the helm. And then we have more of the people. There are so many aspects of what used to be of Doro's seed in Wild Seed, or Doro's stock in Wild Seed, versus what his stock can be with Mary, and with Mary's intervention. And it's such a huge change for the people who are actives as well as the people who are latents, because even it's crazy how different they're treated, because the actives truly have an understanding of who and what they are and why they are the way they are, because Doro gives a damn about them. For a lot of the latents, they have no idea why they are losing their minds and losing the people that are around them, because nobody can stand to be with them, and then at the same point they can't stand to be around other people. So there's a kind of savior complex that happens with Mary being brought into the picture, because Mary can do what Doro has never been able to do, which is save the latents. And that becomes what her mission is. And in finding that as her mission, she also finds out how much like Doro she is, or the ways in which she and Doro, their makeup, not their mindset 100%, although there's a percentage in there, but their physical makeup, how similar they are. And part of me thinks that she's a little happy about it, because she has this ridiculous, they all have this ridiculous sick love for Doro that makes no sense. So part of me thinks that she's happy about it because she's like him in some way, but also she's happy because she's different and she can do this for other people, the people that she has personally seen struggle. She can help them, and that makes her feel a lot better. So yeah, that's what I'm reading the chat as I'm talking. That's one of the things that I really pulled from reading Mind of My Mind and coming to the disappointing realization. And as much as Octavia Butler thrills me in her writing, she also disappoints me, because she doesn't write like I want her to write. Like, she doesn't write her characters like I want them to be. I'm not necessarily looking for them to be like me, because that would be scary, but just, a little bit of, something that I can hold on to, and I can hold on to these characters, but they are so different from me. And then also the inclusion of these 6 other people that change, is so much change that happens. Again, Lauren Olamina is in my head. There's so much change that happens, and how they bring about a difference in how Mary even learns how to relate to other people, and how they have to change how they relate to people. And we learn how we get more information about how their mind works. And I just, the notes that I have that I've written down are like 3 pages long. And I wrote them down long after finishing sections, because I could not let parts go. So I could literally talk about this for days on my own with no feedback, because I'm at 7 minutes and 30 seconds right now, and I could keep going. But and just an overall of Mind of My Mind, I absolutely adored this story. I loved having Mary at the forefront, and I loved seeing the change that has happened, because in spite of how horrible Doro is and how much he does not care, he has no care about humans and humanity, period. But as horrible as he is, we are getting to see what he's been working towards for eons come to pass in some way. And there is some fulfillment in that, even though we meet Doro when he's like 3,000 years in the hole. But there's some fulfillment in being able to see that and knowing that was his ultimate goal. And so, yeah, I am looking forward to what's to come. And it's just, this is great. I'm done. Your turn, Jerry.
So I'm still absorbing the book. So I am currently, I guess, less than 24 hours away from finishing it. And shout out to all the people who read along with me during the slow read. I shared a lot of my in the moment responses when I was going through that. But if I could choose just one thing to talk about, because I want to talk about it more in the group, but if I could choose one thing to talk about, it would be Mary versus Doro, and the expressions of power and control and influence that Mary displayed over the patterness versus the way that Doro treats and treated individuals in Doro's seed villages. I found myself constantly comparing Mary and Doro and asking myself, is Mary better than Doro? And I wanted her to be better than Doro. I wanted her to provide me with a healing after experiencing the way that Doro was so violent, the way that Doro demonstrated such a lack of care for human life, and also that sense of like fatigue and boredom and kind of disinterest that Doro has in everybody but himself or those who can serve him, right? So it was really challenging for me to think of Mary on her own, as opposed to thinking about her in opposition to Doro. So that was an overarching piece for me. And then, interestingly enough, when preparing for the presentation today and our discussion, I reread some of the synopses for Mind of My Mind from different editions of the book. And in each edition, the book is blurbed, it's described differently. And there's the one that we've used in this presentation, that refers to Mary as like a ghetto youth and puts her in opposition to Doro, her creator, right? So I had been thinking in the past little while about Mary and what it meant for Mary to be who she was and who she became. So what do we know about Mary at the beginning of the book? We know that she grew up in really difficult circumstances, very, very violent circumstances, a very rough childhood exposed to violence. We know that. We know that she was looked over by Doro for most of her life. So we definitely know that. We know that Doro always knew that she would be very powerful and was sort of breeding her as this, experiment that could go really well, meaning potentially really bad. We know that. But in terms of her identity, we meet her as a teenager. She's Black. She lives in Los Angeles in the 1970s in a really difficult environment. And so again, we're given a young Black female protagonist living in what seems to be initially urban kind of community or near urban community. And I tried to think about myself at 20 and what would it have been like for me if I realized that I was all powerful and potentially immortal at 20? Like, what are the kinds of things that a 20-year-old in those circumstances might be thinking about, right? And it came to me that, like, as much as I wanted Mary to be the better immortal and to show us how power, connection, and influence could be used in a way that would be kinder, I also have to remember what she grew up in and the harshness that she faced from the beginning. So she constantly has these flashbacks where she's like, Doro, I am what you made. Like, you told me yourself very early, you made me to be super powerful, and now I am, right? So how could she have been the kind of benevolent immortal who's like kind and goddess-like in my imagination? How would the Mary that we met in the circumstances that she grew up in, how would she get there given the experiences that she had, right? And of course it's possible that she could have, but as I started to think about her own life, of course she wants to kill. Of course she wants to control. Of course she wants to experiment with power to see what she can create, right? And Octavia Butler is known for having morally gray characters, especially when it comes to power. And what does it mean for me to want a benevolent young Black woman who's experienced violence? Why not a young Black woman immortal who seeks retribution? Why not one who doesn't blink an eye at killing Doro? Why did I need her to be softer, right? And so there was a part of me that, like, I'm still thinking about that. And if you're in my group, spoiler, I will probably ask some questions about like Mary versus Doro and what did we want from her? What did you want from her? What did you need from her? And why, right? So I think there's that. The other thing that I noticed when I first started reading was that Dana was a 20-something-year-old at the beginning of Kindred living in Los Angeles in the 1970s. Mary was a late teenager when we meet her living in Los Angeles in the 1970s. So Octavia Butler created a Los Angeles in the 1970s in which lived Dana and Mary and maybe others. So if you're a person here, I know a lot of you are from the US, I'm Canadian, but if you're a person here who was alive in the 1970s in Los Angeles, what would you do if you were just walking down the street and there's Dana and Mary? Like, what? You know what I mean? So like there was something happening in the 70s. We know what we know politically about the 70s. And so all of these supernatural Black women just trolling the streets in 1970 in Los Angeles. And I'm just fascinated. The slow read has allowed me to think about all of the stories together and just what kind of collective world was Octavia E. Butler building and why, right? So I'm really left with that. I enjoyed the experience of reading it, especially toward the end. I kind of fell off my seat at the last moment. The pacing was great for me, and I can't wait to hear what other people have to say. So I'm gonna stop there. All right, so the three of us have shared. I'm still, just in terms of the people in the chat, YouTube seems to have changed its rules and I can't open the live chat. So we have to figure out what we're going to do. So what I'm thinking is that after we split everybody up, what I might do is end the YouTube live show, see if I can restart it and allow, because I found the button that says enable live chat, but it's ghosted and it won't let me click, which we haven't had this problem before. So it was kind of unanticipated. So I apologize for that. We're going to see if we can fix it. So I think the best thing to do right now, looking at you virtually, Isis and Tati, is to separate into groups and start our discussion. For those of you, while we're all here, Isis, Tati, and I will each be leading a group, a small group, where we'll be able to get into it more. And just to share the screen for a second, we each have copies of questions that we will ask. I know that some of you have already come with notes and questions and things you want to get off your chest. So I would encourage the three of us to see if we can do a what's on your chest before we even get into the actual questions. But here are a few questions that you might want to consider for discussion. And I think I'm sharing only my slide. Is that right?
Yes.
So here are some questions. Mary is a Black, cisgender, heterosexual, able-bodied, quote unquote, ghetto immortal born in the 1970s. Reflect on this. 2, what is the essential nature of the pattern, right? So what is this thing called the pattern? How does it work? If you had any relationship to the pattern, what would it be? What did it feel like in your imagination when you were reading it? Emma, Doro, and Mary, compare and contrast. How are the patternists different from the members of Doro's seed villages and Emma's community? And then Mary and Dana become friends. What happens next? And so those are some questions that I thought of.
Oh my God.
For those of you who participated in the slow read, The slow readers also came up with some questions, and Isis, Tati, and I have copies of those as well. So we will talk about those in the chat. Okay, so logistically, here's what we're gonna do, and I'm gonna ask you to bear with me. We're gonna separate everyone into groups. That's gonna take a little while because I might have to do it manually. And then we'll make sure that myself, Isis, or Tati are in one of those groups. And we'll take about 45 minutes or so that we can, all of you can actually have an opportunity to discuss. Okay, so Isis or Tati, feel free to lead some chat. I'm gonna try and separate us all painlessly into 3 groups.
You can't do the automatic. Oh, yeah, you can't do the automatic.
I'm gonna try that.
All right, as we are moving into our breakout rooms, I want to encourage all of you to just participate in the conversation. If you feel comfortable participating verbally, by all means, please do so. If you feel comfortable, hi, Dr. Van Booten. If you feel comfortable participating and communicating via chat, that is also available. What will be different is that when we're in the smaller group, we'll be able to actually read the chat and then allow everyone to respond. But I just want to encourage everyone to participate and speak, because that is the beauty of this whole Zoom situation, that we can participate and speak with each other.
And also on that note, the omens note, I like the parallel of Anyuanu, Joro, and Mary realizing who they are. They're in different stages of their life. Like others in the chat, I've changed my perspective and understanding as I've aged. I can't even imagine living for centuries and seeing who the world continues to have so much tragedy, death, abuse, etc. So for Emma to give up makes sense. I'm sorry, there's some more, but I'm kind of blocked. We saw her changes already in Wild Seed, as she's changed from running from Duro to her experiences in joining him at the end of the novel. This novel takes the meld into all that variation, possibility, danger, etc.
Okay, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so if you can put yourself on mute just to avoid an echo. All right, everyone. So my first question is just this. Is there anything that you need to get off your chest? So is there anything that you just want to talk about before we even get into more targeted questions about Mind of My Mind? How did you like it? Did you like it?
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. My biggest issue is Mary really an immortal? Because we didn't really get any, or at least from me, I didn't really understand, is she really immortal? I know she, absorbed what's his face. I guess a part of their battle was you can't kill me, but I wasn't really sure if that's clear. And I'm just like, where did Doro go? I know he's a part of the pattern. I have this like feeling he's coming back, that he's not really dead. And if he comes back, does Aniwahu come back too? Because those are my like unanswered questions that drive me a little crazy.
I think for me, one of the
Actually,
things
before you start, can you just say where in the world you're at right now, if you're comfortable with that?
Oh yeah. I am in the US in Minnesota. My name is Bree and I use she, her pronouns. The biggest thing that I can't get over is how Anyanu equated mute to the N-word, and every time I saw it, I read it in that context. So I had a very hard time reading every time the word mute came along because I immediately associated with the N-word.
Yeah, the dancing's not within your comfort zone, but I think you gave it a good go. But why watch tonight? Dissecting the routine. What you actually did, basically.
Is that somebody commenting or is that something in the background? I think that's something in the background. Okay.
No, she's commenting, but it's very faint. I can hardly hear her.
Okay. Whoever was just speaking, do you want to get closer to your microphone if that's possible, or to your speakers, and repeat what you just said?
It was the lady with the British accent.
Okay. I hope you'll find your way to the mic again. Others, general thoughts. Did you like it?
I have something to say. I read the book. I think this was probably my third time reading the book, but the first time I read it was years and years ago. And the only thing I remembered about the book was the way that Doro was ended, and I just loved it. So I read the whole book like wanting to race to the end, because I think the way it was phrased was that she just consumed his essence, and I thought that is such a fitting end for him. So that kind of kept me going. I mean, the plot development was wonderful, and you could kind of see where it was going. But for somebody who is so immortal and so wise, the fact that he couldn't anticipate that perhaps he might have created a creation that got away from his control, I thought that was, it just shows he truly might have been immortal in his view, but he certainly wasn't omniscient. So.
Thanks.
This is Maria from Seattle. I did not think I would find any sympathy or compassion for Doro at all. And after he was dead, I was able to kind of look at it from a different perspective of like, what if I kept forgetting that he was someone who failed going through their transition. that he was just like a child going through transition who failed and became orphaned and no one to tell him what to do next, and started to see him as like the really destructive latents that Mary was finding, who were doing all of these super horrific things. And then once they were in the pattern, that they became someone totally different. So I started to wonder of like who Doro could have been if he had successfully gotten through transition, or somehow figured out how to become just like a member of the pattern, if he would have been someone like the others in her pattern.
Thanks. And I'd encourage you to take a look at the chat, because folks are saying that's a good point. So the conversation is happening there as well. And, you know, one of the things that I feel I really struggled with that as well. I wanted to understand why Octavia E. Butler would have given us Doro, right? Because she was deliberate about every single thing that she wrote about. Why did we need a character like Doro? And if you think of all the science fiction and fantasy that you've read, have you met a character like Doro before, or since, right? So this figure who, you know, has very little regard for life, and who gets destroyed, right? So what did we need Doro for? Any thoughts about that? Did you find yourself feeling sympathetic for Doro?
This is Lisa from Boston. I would say that I found it interesting that when we shifted perspective, when Octavia Butler wrote as Doro, or wrote as Mary, or wrote as Anyan Wu, or as Emma, right? We could feel better for that character. And then when we were the other characters seeing her or him or whatever, all of a sudden we would say, oh, well, Mary's really a nasty, untamed teenager who hasn't come to terms with her hormones and understand her powers, etc. But when we're seeing from her point of view, we empathize with her. And I just thought that way that Octavia Butler was able to write really enhanced the story and made me think about it more.
Thanks. Others? Who was your favorite character? Out of all the patternists, who were you intrigued by the most? Jan, says Bree in the chat. And how did you, so while you were reading it, you know, in the first little bit, we get Mary's perspective. So she is, you know, she grows up in this really rough neighborhood, but all throughout she's had this relationship with Doro. We get a little bit of Emma, and Yanwu now is Emma, which is what happened in Wild Seed. And then we spend the rest of the time with the patternists, and we sort of see them grow as a community. As you moved through the plot, as you moved through the book, was there a community other than the patternists that you were curious about, or that you wanted Octavia E. Butler to share more about?
There was a comment about the teenager that told Ada what they were doing was wrong, and talking about, well, how is Mary any different than Doro in many ways, because she kind of took over. And I thought, again, that multiplicity of perspectives as we went through, it's just part of when you read these books, that ambiguity, that grayness is everywhere, and it's hard to even answer that question.
what were you hoping in this what were you hoping for in this second book of the Patternist series, and did you get it?
Number one, I needed Doro dead.
Well, you got that, or did you?
Well, this was my second time reading Mind of My Mind, but I didn't have the opportunity to finish the entire thing, so I kind of skimmed through it. So in my memory, what I remember combined with what I've just done, it really helped me to look at this book again, because I was getting more perspective on it. You know, the more I realized what patternist means, you know, as we go into later novels, I'm like, oh, so I read that. And I had no idea what it had to do with the patternist. And it was just mentioned just in passing in the introductory part, how, what is it, Parable of the Sower, that she's a pattern, she's part of the pattern. I'm like, what? I had no idea all this was connected. So it just keeps on. It's where it takes over Doro. And I think Mary is kind of a not quite as soulless version of Doro, though she has a lot of characteristics of Doro. She has some semblance of care for others. That's how I saw it.
And did you say that you cut out a little bit? Were you referring to Parable of the Sower as being connected to the pattern in some way? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Can you say more about that?
Well, I just heard someone, one of the sisters who are running this, say something about the pattern and Parable of the Sower. She said it. I didn't. I had no idea.
Interesting.
So that was just a new piece of knowledge for me.
Okay.
And it helped me to put it in perspective, better perspective. I knew that the stuff about clay arcs and all that stuff came from, you know, the pattern, but I didn't know anything about Parable of the Sower being part of it.
I'm going to read some of the comments in the chat, and please continue to get your thoughts together if you'd like to share via voice. What time is it? We are at 2:03. So let me just go back and see some of the comments. I wanted to hear, so Anne-Marie said you wanted to hear more about Emma / Anyanwu, and so did I. How did people feel? Oh, let me just read what RR has to say too, because it's related to Emma. I was hoping that Emma would be stronger. She escaped so much and turned into a brood mare anyway. And so thoughts about that. I'm curious about what people feel about, you know, Anyanwu Emma. I was hoping that we would see more of Anyanwu, right? Because I feel like Anyanwu and Emma are different people. I feel like they're totally different characters. In Wild Seed, we were introduced to this very, very strong, steadfast, you know, woman who had survived for, you know, centuries, if not millennia, in this community. And then, you know, there's this decline as the story goes on, and then she just disappears into Emma. And then we see in Mind of My Mind, she chooses to take her life. So that was difficult for me, because it seemed inconsistent with the Emma that I had been exposed to, the Anyanwu that I had been exposed to. So I feel like a lot of comments that I've heard about Emma are about wishing that she would be stronger. Jill,
sorry, go ahead.
Jill in Japan says, this was the first book for me. It was years before I found out there were more. And the books were also designed to be standalones as well. And so, yeah, it's great to see that there was more in the world. But I'm curious as to how you felt reading it just on its own. I was hoping for Anyanwu's powers to evolve. Same here. I wonder if Emma set up Doro to die by getting him to agree to leave Mary and her group alone for 2 years. I wondered about that as well. And for those of you who read Wild Seed, did you notice a theme between the conversation that Isaac had with Anyanwu about saving Doro and Doro being able to be redeemed because he just needs to be loved, and then what happened between Mary and Doro, Mary sort of asking Doro to just accept the pattern and finally have what he was waiting for, which is a community.
And Jerry Anne Marie from Oakland. Yeah, I definitely think that. I definitely think that there was, I had a hard time hating Doro. Like, he makes you want to hate him, but then you could see the charisma and why people were drawn to him. I mean, it was like there was only that crack of possible redemption in Wild Seed, and he kind of was okay. He kind of conceded for a moment, and you saw a little bit of humanity or desire for community and love, and then he gets power hungry again, like the ability to just kill anybody at will. Like it has become sort of the prime motivator. And it's sort of, and also in this book, it sort of seems like he's lost the thread of why he's creating these communities. It finally gets fulfilled in Mary and the Patternists, and he resents it and won't let himself be a part of it.
Mm.
So it's interesting.
RR says, and for her to just die because her man was gone, I roll. Listen, when I read that in the epilogue, I was like, this is the end of the great Anyanwu. It's just like, well, Doro's popped off, so I will too. Why? Why? Why do you think, right? The only answer I could come up with is that they were both very tired, right? They're both very tired, but there was so much going on. There was this whole new pattern to experience. There was a relationship with Emma is a great grandma or a great grandma to Mary, I believe, right? There was possibility there, I thought. You were going to say, Tanya?
Tanya from Cincinnati. I forgot to say where it's from. I'm not sure. Was Mary? I don't think Mary was immortal, right? Just a telepath, just a super telepath. Okay, I'm thinking after all those centuries, Anyanwu was just, or Emma was just, like you said, tired. She gets tired of seeing people born and die. And since she had nobody else to move through eternity with, she was just ready to go. So I think if I was her, I might be curious to stick around a century and see what happened to Mary. But she was just ready because she had no companion.
And I think Mary, I thought Mary was immortal or element, like when Doro ends up experiencing her, I think that he discovers when he sees her through the pattern and she's all like bright. Yeah, I feel like there was something immortal there that he noticed in her. Now, Anyanwu isn't immortal. So, and I wish that her, I maybe would have been okay with the relationship with Emma deciding to transcend because Doro was gone. I would have been more convinced of that if the relationship between Doro and Anyanwu had been more developed, right? Because it's more like they put up with each other rather than actually loving each other, right? Because there's so much dysfunctional love in this relationship. And I guess another question that I have is what was the most healthiest relation in the pattern of series so far? Which relationship would you say was the healthiest? While you're thinking about that, I'm going to read some comments. So Yasmin says, no sympathy for Doro, but considering the intent behind his actions, if his intent had been to create a community to be a part of rather than control, to find a place of belonging, the outcome would have been different. It never occurred to me while reading it that was an alternative, and it never occurred to Doro. His intent was always to dominate and control, not to belong. Jill, hard for me to think that because she did die. Yeah. But maybe she died because she didn't want to be a mute under the patterness. And really being mindful, I want to go back to Bree's comment about the term mute, and it being used as a placeholder for the N-word, which we're not going to use in full in this live show, but it being used as a stand-in for that, and what that means. When I read Pattern Master, that seemed likely. I haven't read it yet. Octavia E. Butler does such a great job with strong women, and she was a letdown for me. So, right, Anyanwu can't save her descendants if she is dead. Okay. So, question in particular to the Black women in this group. Or Black women identified individuals. Here's a thought that I have, because you know how there's often an expectation that Black women will carry the burden of healing everybody, right? That they're going to, like, didn't Octavia in Anyanwu give us a Black woman character who had agency over how she would be used? Who decided that she could not exist as she was in the world without having to take care of everyone, right? Latents, people, her descendants. Wasn't Anyanwu strong in her decision to no longer be utilized as a Black woman at that time? Could we not have read her as stronger having left? Thoughts?
I'm sorry. Hello?
Yeah. Hi, Monique. You're on mute if you're trying to speak. I think it was Monique. Okay. Anyone else?
Well, I think it could be seen as empowering because she had chosen to take on that role because I think someone had to, all these vulnerable, telepaths. She felt someone had to do it. And I think, of course, Doro did some coercing, but I think she chose that role because you couldn't make her do anything. And maybe it was empowering for her to leave. Maybe she was tired of being a nurturer. And maybe Mary, with her pattern, had taken over that role. It wasn't necessary for her to be a nurturer anymore. Maybe she just lost her purpose, and she's like, I don't want to nurture anymore. I've done this for centuries. That's enough. You could see it in that way.
Hi, this is Latrice from New Jersey. I definitely think that's a great perspective that you brought up, because if you look at today's climate, especially in the United States, it's like always the Black women are the ones that are pulling everyone together. We're the ones making the decisions to change our political climate and quote unquote save the nation, right? And it's tiring because on one end we do that, and then we are always at the tail end of the stick on getting the needs and the desires that we as Black women particularly need. And we can be your savior on one end, but no one ever comes to save us. So I definitely can understand that and grasp why she's like, all right, I'm done. I've been here long enough. I wanted to make sure I was a check and balance to Doro, and I've done my part. I told Doro what he needed to do with Mary, and he still ain't do it right. So what I need to stay here for? You good with your pattern? I'm out. It hurts as a reader because you've grown so accustomed to her character, and you want to see her just be be the Mary almost, right? Because we're so attached to her from Wild Seed, but you know, so those are my thoughts.
Thank you for that. Others? Y'all, this chat is alive. 53 messages, and I am trying, but I don't have any supernatural powers today. So I ask you to turn your attention to the chats.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I've been trying to talk for a moment. My speaker wasn't working. Back on the annual, at the beginning of the book, she says that she's ready to die because she's been.
Oh, Monique. All right, Monique, you keep trying. And if you can't get through on your audio, put it in the chat and we'll read it out. Somebody let me know when because Monique has been fighting the good fight here to try and get a word in. So we'll see. Okay. Another question for you. You are now part of the story. You're now in that world. Where would you situate yourself? Who would you be? Where would you live? Would you be in the pattern? Would you not? Octavia E. Butler created this world for us, and now we can put ourselves in it. Who and where would you be and why? And please, if you're able, speak in the chat. And here are some thoughts. Clay, because I want to fly. You know, Latrice, that's cool. Clay, because I want to fly. I would be one of the I would be one of the MSs having to serve the patterness. Okay, Lisa. Bree, I would be with Clay, with nature and the animals. Jill, I would like to be one of Jan's students to be able to see images of the past from touching objects. That leads me to another question, which is whose supernatural powers, like whose talents were the coolest and why? What most surprised you? Jan's abilities were amazing. And for me reading that, you know, from my perspective as a Black queer woman living in like the Canadian diaspora, genealogy and knowing who your ancestors are is so important. And those records were stolen from us as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. So being able to hold an object and trace its lineage and to be able to say like this comb, this pie cutter, you know, that's been passed down, I can now use it to tell stories of my past. Like that's amazing. That would be amazing. And the way that the paintings were described, that's I agree with you, Jill. Carrie, I would like to be outside but adjacent outside of but adjacent to the pattern and helping Mary help them. Cool. Okay. I'm just going to give the other facilitators a 5-minute warning. So think about whether you have any additional thoughts that you'd like to share.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anyone else has thought of this as they were reading it, but I'm getting so much X-Men vibes. Yeah. And I was like, I wonder, and I didn't do any research on this, but I was wondering like when X-Men, the comic book, because it came out back in the day, right? When did that come out? Because I'm sitting there reading this, I'm like, Mary is totally Professor X. Everybody else who has all these different abilities, they're the mutants. And I was like, I'm wondering if this was that comic book series done around the same time, or was it done after these books were published? Because that's literally the vibe I was getting as I was watching it. And I just thought that was really interesting because I can see this whole series as a TV show or a movie. And I would love to see someone create this and really expand on the world that she's created for us.
I agree. Somebody in the chat has said that X-Men came out in the 60s pre-Butler. And I haven't, what's that?
I was just saying, okay, got you. That's it.
1963 to be exact. And what we know about Octavia E. Butler is that she lived on her own after she was able, well, she didn't have a partner, I believe, when she was writing. And I'm not sure if she lived with her mother or on her own, but I think for some time she was living on her own. And, you know, she was alone and a lot of the time, right? And she was an introvert. And so there's a lot of, and she felt awkward in spaces a lot of the time. And if you've watched any of the interviews of her and with her around that time, the science fiction and fantasy community wasn't kind to what she wrote at the time. It was only years and decades later that people started to, in great numbers, realize how incredible and prophetic her work was. But at the time, she wasn't getting all of the aplomb that she deserved. So it's interesting that she creates these larger than life, you know, Black women who have the ability to create connections with other people. Because if you look at Mary in Mind of My Mind, Olamina, and Laura and Olamina in the parables, Lilith and Lilith's brood, like this idea of a Black woman being connected to other people, being a leader, right? Whether it's a leader, even Shori in Fledgling, right? There's a Black woman at the center gathering people to her or engaging with other people in community. And I feel like Octavia Butler is at an interesting moment in time to be writing about Black women at the center of relationships. I'm seeing Monique Young refer to the idea of matriarchy. Yeah, now her stories seem prescient. And I remember folks talking about matriarchy not necessarily being benevolent. Just because you have a cisgender heterosexual woman at the center doesn't mean that everything's going to be fine. And that all of a sudden it's going to be fair and egalitarian. Any final thoughts? We've got 60 seconds before I close the breakout.
Okay, I have something really came to my mind this morning, and the pattern, I was thinking QAnon people, MAGA, Doro, Trump, soul stealer, controller, all he cares about is himself, proprietary. I just couldn't help but make that parallel. What do you all think about that? It's something to think about.
That's the beauty of well-written literature. You can draw the parallels and why it's so important to read.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Tanya, I thought the exact same thing. That, you know, the thing about Doro is like is a sociopath. You know, he has no human connection or concern for other people, and the people in the person in my lifetime who most epitomizes that is Donald Trump. You know, so I agree with you. I saw those connections, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It says a lot about human nature, for one thing. Imagine. But thank God everybody's not a Doro or everybody's not like a Trump, but there's a lot of human nature in there, in that book.
So here's what I have to say about Trump, the Trump-Doro connection. I get it because many people have very similar feelings about Trump as we do about Doro. However, Doro has like an early life experience of oppression, like a very, very early life experience of that. And I don't know that I want to give any kind of olive branch or give space to Trump. I also don't want to talk about Trump too much right now because I feel like we've escaped, and so let's just keep it moving. But yeah, there's something about Doro's origin story that when we match it up to that other person, Voldemort, as we sometimes call him, that it, you know, doesn't quite match up. But anyway, there we are. Okay, so I see that all of us are back. My apologies to the people in the YouTube chat. We weren't able to figure out how to get the chat working, so we will deal with that. I know that some of you have come over to the Zoom platform from the chat, so thank you. Oh, I'm seeing some questions. What? Look it up. What are we talking about here? Are we good in the chats? Okay. All right. I'm assuming that we're fine. Okay, so anything from your discussions, Tatiana or Isis, that you want to share? We got some feedback in the surveys that once we got back from the small groups that folks wanted to have an opportunity before the sound circle to just talk about things that came up. So virtually looking at you, Tati and Isis.
We had Isis, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tati.
No, I'd go first all the time.
Okay, so no, I love the discussion. As always, we talked a lot about Doro. We talked a lot about like how we would see ourselves in the book, because we talked about like its setting in 1970s LA, and like some of the historical things that were going on, such as the development of the Black Panther movement, the Watts riots, and then also ended it with like a pop-up what powers that we're bringing into society to make a better world. So we had everything from music to arts to connecting to helping people, and I think it kind of helped us take that networking, that power and that power dynamics in the book and apply it to our everyday lives. So I really enjoyed the discussion. If anybody else in the group wanted to add something in, Caleb, Regina, Renee, Will, but those are the things I took away.
Can we add something like out loud or in the chat?
You already out loud.
All right. I really like a question that I'm going to probably journal about after this is thinking of Doro. So we talked about Doro, of course, and someone had asked about like Doro being like male, and like even that question, I was like, wait, but I don't even see Doro as like human even, but like Doro does always take on like male bodies, and so like thinking about Doro and masculinity is just like a whole concept that I'm like, like what is this? What does this mean? What is this saying? So that was a huge takeaway for me.
Yeah, we talked about quite a few things. I had a question that I posed about the use of the word indoctrination in the bringing in of the six for initially, and what the process was for some of them, and some things that I forgot as I read, and the enjoyment of, number one, that we all read from different, perspectives. And then I asked the question that was also posed in one of the silent reads that we did of who we would like to replace our least favorite character with. And there were some very interesting, someone said Lauren, someone said Bankole, who, my heart beats. Someone said one of the Oankali. So it was very, that discussion was very interesting. And that wasn't my question. That was in Jerry's question. So I just stole it. And then we also had a discussion of the Mary, Emma, and Doro relationship, and Emma's fear of Mary, and how the community brought together, and the whole control aspect. Yeah, there were quite a few things that we talked about. Would anyone who was in the group like to share? or expound?
Just to jump in, because I came in when you guys were talking about Donald Trump and not wanting to give him the same background as Duro. We did have a little bit of a discussion about Mary as a member of the cycle of abuse, and when you get to the second generation of abuse, making a decision how you're going to be different, or do you fall into the same trap?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That was at the very beginning. My brain, excitement.
Also, great shirt, Amy. Did you
Yes.
get it at SistahSciFi? That Mind of My Mind shirt?
I did, and I owe them a picture. I did tweet it out on my social media to tell everyone to go get a shirt.
Yes.
At SistahSciFi.
Go get a shirt. Go get a shirt. I was gonna wear mine today, but it's short sleeved and winter.
All right. So we are going to move into the next part of things. But first, which is the sound circle, but first we are going to take our selfie. So what I would ask you to do is, if you'd like to be in the photograph, which we hope you will, please open up your screens and grab your book. And we are going to take a bunch of selfies.
There are 3 panels, so just
so just
hold and freeze.
Keep smiling. Tommy, are you going to be in the picture or not? You are going to be in the picture? Okay, cool. I just needed to figure out the hand situation. Okay. So let me get my Control-Shift-4, get my crosshairs. Okay. So, ooh, Jill, you have a vintage cover. Very excited. Okay, so picture number 1, 1, 2, and we're still working on it, Anne? There we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm going to screen number 2. This is cool because this is where I get to see all the people who are here. Oh, I'm loving all these vintage covers. Very excited. Okay, 1, 2, and 3, and last screen. Okay, and 1, 2, and 3. Okay, thank you for that. We've got all of your gorgeous faces, and I'm gonna share the screen again. So we just did that. So we'll be showing like little selfie pictures in subsequent live shows. All right, so we are now at the sound circle part. So if you're here for the first time, the sound circle is an opportunity for us to engage with the text in a non-linear, very interactive, call and response kind of way. So here's how it works. First of all, please grab your books, take a look at your annotations, and choose a 3 to 5 sentence excerpt from the book that you enjoyed and that you would be willing to read into the space. When I say start, we are going to each have an opportunity to read. It will not be facilitated. None of the facilitators will be calling someone out to read. You just wait for a silent moment and wait till the pattern tugs at you and then read your excerpt. If you choose not to read, or while you're not reading, just listen to the voices of others reading the words that you've read. Sometimes hearing the intonation of another person can bring the words to life differently for you. And if you choose to read, which we hope you do, don't add any commentary. Don't even say what page you're on. Just start anywhere and read. And then listen some more. And then when we have a long break of silence, we will know when we're done. So that's how the sound circle works. And we'll begin now with whoever would like to start.
He watched her mentally as well, or watched the ophidophobe whose mind held her. He thought he understood something now, something he had wondered about. He knew how Mary's expanding talent, acting without control, was opening one pathway after another to others' people's raw emotions. And now he realized that when he let himself be caught up in those emotions, he was standing in the middle of an open pathway.
Bring her through for me, Carl, and you'll be all right. And her, she's a dangerous kind of experiment, believe me. If she turns out to be another failure, you'll want her dead more than I will. I wish I knew what the hell you were doing, aside from playing God, I mean.
Yet only a few hours later, he had done enough emotional backsliding to sit by and let me almost kill myself. All because of this pattern thing. I wonder how big a mental leap it will be for him to go from a willingness to let me be killed to a willingness to kill me himself.
What is it about her that frightens you? I don't know. You should know. She thought for a moment. It was just a feeling at first, like the feeling I ignored when I tried to read you this morning. A feeling of danger. A feeling that she could carry out those threats she kept not quite making. She stopped, looked at Doro. He said nothing. She went on. I guess the dangerous thing about her is the one you hinted at just before you went up. That if she can heal the sick, she can probably make people sick too.
I told everybody that the pattern was a permanent fixture, binding them to me. It wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't going anywhere, and they weren't going to do anything to me. I told them I could kill them, would kill them if they pushed me, but that I didn't want to kill them if I could avoid it. I told them to follow the feelings I knew they were suppressing and accept the pattern. Get themselves somewhere, new interests, or revive some old ones. Get jobs if they wanted them. Stop sitting around bitching like kids. I spoke quietly to them. I didn't rant and rave, but they still didn't like what I had to say.
I couldn't have said what I was doing. I knew Carl was still with me. His mental voice was still reaching me. I didn't mean to grab him the way I did. I didn't realize until afterward that I had done it. And even then, it seemed a perfectly natural thing to do. It was what I had done to the others. Others. Yes. 5 of them. They seemed to be far away from me, perhaps scattered around the country.
Not what I'd be like as a woman. I already know that. I've been a woman I don't know how many times. No. What I'd be like is a complete entity. What I'd be like if I hadn't died that first time, died before I was fully formed. Before you were, Emma frowned. I don't understand. How do you know you weren't fully formed when you died? I know. I've seen enough almost Doros, enough near successes to know.
I don't have anything more in common with Black people, Nubians or otherwise, than I do with whites or Asians. You mean you don't want to admit you have anything in common with us. But if you were born Black, you are Black, still Black, no matter what color you take on.
She was giving him a united people, a group finally recognizable as the seeds of the race he had been working to create. They were a people who belonged to him since Mary belonged to him, but they were not a people he could be part of. As Mary's pattern brought them together, it shut him out. Together, the patternists were growing into something that he could observe, hamper, or destroy, but not something he could join. They were his goal, half accomplished.
But no, she was not his twin. She was a smaller, much younger being. a complete version of him, a mistake that he would not make again. But ironically, her very completeness would help to destroy her. She was a symbiont, a being living in partnership with her people. She gave them unity, they fed her, and both thrived. She was not a parasite, though he had encouraged her to think of herself as one. And though she had great power, she was not naturally, instinctively a killer. He was.
We do
This
this
is
like this.
okay. I guess I'll go. This is better. People have had time to cool off. He gave me an odd look. What do you think might have happened if you waited a little longer than 2 weeks? Then let Jesse and Rachel do some mellowing. Jesse and Rachel weren't mellowing. They were feeding on each other's hatred, building each other up to jump me.
He was still joined to her, joined by a single strand of fire. She had used her mental closeness with him to draw him into her web, her pattern. He panicked. He was a member of the pattern, a patterness, property, Mary's property.
They formed a shifting pattern of light and color. I brought them together somehow. Now I was holding them together and they didn't want to be held. Their pattern went through kaleidoscopic changes in design as they tried to break free of me. They were bright and darting fragments of fear and surprise, like insects beating themselves against glass. Then they were long strands of fire stretching away from me, but somehow never stretching quite far enough to escape. They were writhing, shapeless things merging into each other, breaking apart, rolling together again as a tidal wave of light, as a single clawing hand.
Woo! I just had to say something. Woo! Woo! So good.
That was such fun. Thank you so much.
Did Jill in Japan want to say something? Read something?
Now we were free to grow again. We, his children.
Everyone's right now. That's okay.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. That was amazing. I know that some of you have to go. So, please bid your adieus in the chat if you have to go. We still have a little bit left to do. So I am going to share screen once again. I've got tingles. Okay. So a couple of things, if you could put yourself on mute to avoid the echo. So a couple of things, we are going to be sending out a survey. We do it after each of the live shows, and we shift and change how we organize the live shows in order for it to be better the next time. I know one thing we're going to do is figure out that YouTube chat thing this time, but please do fill out the survey and let us know what you liked, what you'd like us to do differently, and share your views in the survey. That's very important to us. We are on a journey together until the end of 2022. A lot's going to change in the world and in our own lives. And so whatever we can do for this to be the best experience for the greatest number of people, we will do our best. So check your email. Today, we will have the updated survey in there for you to fill out. And of course, you will be entered into a draw if you put in your email address at the end of the survey. And I think now might be a good time, before we talk about the next book, now would be a good time, Isis, to do the draw for our winners for Kindred and also for Wild Seed. So I'll hand it over to you.
Okie dokie. And I was queued up for this, but of course, as usual, I wasn't prepared. But we're gonna make this happen. So I'm going to the survey results for Kindred and Wild Seed. I'm opening them up and we'll do the drawing. So let's start with Kindred. And the winner is, and they don't have to be present today, right?
No, they don't have to be present. We'll reach out over email.
Okay. So random flow through. So I just went through the emails, and like the one that came up first, which ironically enough in the center of my page is Dr. Van Putten. So you will get a $25 gift certificate. I'll send that to you via your Gmail account. Expect that later today. So the universe has rewarded your amazing talent. Okay, so that was taken, but thank you. It's always a pleasure to see you at the book read and to hear you read. So I'm excited. I'm just making a little note here. And you will get that today. So that was from folks who filled out the Kindred form. And now I'm going to Wild Seed. It's loading.
Do you want me to read the synopsis for Clay's Arc and then we can do the Wild Seed one after that?
That would be perfect.
Okay. All right. So our next book is going to be Clay's Arc. So I need to find a green and yellow outfit for y'all. And here is the synopsis. So an innocent family. Sorry, that's spelled wrong. An innocent family carjacked on a desolate highway is abducted to a bizarre new world, a world being born in the Californian desert. They discover Earth has been invaded by an alien microorganism. The deadly entity attacks like a virus, but survivors of the disease genetically bond with it, developing amazing powers, near immortality, unnatural desires, and a need to spread the contagion and create a secret colony of the transformed. Now, the meaning of survival changes, for the babies born in the colony are clearly, undeniably not human. That is Clay's Arc. That is our next book. Our live show chat is going to be on March 28th, 2021. You will be able to go to the Eventbrite, and right now you can register for Clay's Arc to join us. Tickets are either free, or you can make a $5 donation or a $10 donation. So that's completely up to you. And also, we are going to be doing another slow read of Clay's Arc. So over on my YouTube channel, Onyx Pages, for the month of March, on Friday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern, we will be coming together to read and freak out probably about Clay's arc, starting on March 5th and ending on March 27th. So you will also receive, if you're registered, everybody who's registered will receive an email, and the email will contain links to all of the slow reads. So you'll be able to get right on to StreamYard and participate that way. And of course, we're going to end our reading the night before the live show. So it'll be fresh in your heads and hearts before we start again. So Isis, the winner.
The winner. Wild Seed survey participants will get a $25 SistahSciFi gift card is Anne Marie Broach. And I will email you the gift card later today.
Congratulations. Okay, so this is where I fangirl about SistahSciFi. So as you know, Isis is the owner of SistahSciFi, which is a bookstore and community where you can get all of your Black women, Black folk written science fiction merchandise, including the Mind of My Mind shirt that a lot of people are wearing today, the books from the Octavia E. Butler Slow Read, and a bunch of other things as well. So please make sure that you check out SistahSciFi and grab all of your stuff from Isis's shop. Isis, did you want to add anything else about how great SistahSciFi is?
Oh, thank you. No, that shout out was perfect. The one thing you may have just said this, when you get 4 more titles from Octavia E. Butler titles, you'll get 20% off. You probably just said that. Okay. So yeah, so I love it when people get that discount. It makes the books a little bit more affordable. So yeah.
Cool. So we did this last time in another Zoom link. We are not going to be doing that in another link this time, but I know that this was quite structured. So if there are some of you who are interested in just hanging out after we formally close, we'll probably keep this Zoom open for about half an hour, stop the live streaming, and just have a conversation here on Zoom. So feel free after we say goodbye to folks to stay on. And after everybody who wants to leave is gone, I'll be around because I'm on right now and I just want to have a cozy chat with y'all. So that'll happen after we end formally. Okay, what's the last? Tati, you want to do this part?
Sure. We have numerous ways that you can keep in touch with each of us. The one way that you can do so is to, number one, register through the Eventbrite link. If you don't, I saw that someone asked for the Eventbrite link to be put in chat. I would do that, but Isis, you rock. Thank you. If you are not able to save the link from the chat, the link is also in our profile on our OEB Slow Read Instagram, as well as our OEB Slow Read Twitter. We are trying to manage each of us have multiple platforms that we manage. And so sometimes we get a little ahead of and then behind schedule on sharing and posting. There is a highlight on the OEB Slow Read Instagram that has the entire schedule for the dates that we're reading the book, as well as the dates of the live shows. And then there will be posts intermittently. I'm trying to do a better job. Thank you all for all of you who post on your personal IG pages and tag us. I'm trying to do a better job of checking those messages so that I can share those in our stories as well. But you can also subscribe to both in Jerry's channel and my channel on Instagram and on YouTube. And Jerry's channel is Onyx Pages. Mine is Musical Tati, and SistahSciFi has a YouTube channel. So you can also go and subscribe there so that when Isis does post videos and updates, she's not as active on her YouTube platform yet as in Jerry and I are, but you can also go and subscribe there so that when she does make posts and updates, you'll get those as well. And I think I got all of them just out of order. Yay.
That sounds good. Okay, Isis, Tati, anything else we need to share as hosts before we ask anyone else if they have any final thoughts before we close formally? I think we're good. Okay. So before we say see you next time, does anybody else who's here, would you like to share anything before we close the formal part of this afternoon? For those of us in this hemisphere?
I don't know if anyone have seen this new book that came out in late 2020.
Yes. Excuse me. Sorry.
Fabulous. I advise everyone to get it. You really get into the head of Miss Butler. It is an incredible, incredible book. She has handwritten notes. The photographs are wonderful. And the author, you can view her on YouTube.
I am going to, for those, if you're staying, I'm going to because I have it on my birthday wish list on Amazon.
So email it to everybody.
I'm going to put it in the chat.
Oh, okay.
The book is called A Handful of Earth, A Handful of Sky by Linnell George. Yeah, I'm planning on doing a video on Onyx Pages where I go through about 5 or 6 secondary sources about Octavia E. Butler. So if you're interested, just, subscribe to the channel and you'll get notifications. But there are a number of books, this one being the most recent and the most interdisciplinary, I think, of the books about her work. So I would second that. Check that one out. And it's also very beautiful.
It is.
Very, very beautiful. Thanks for that.
Agree. Not to be, there are a couple questions on if it's available on SistahSciFi. It's not at this moment, but I can make it available. And if folks are interested, I'll make it available later today.
Whoa, that's amazing. Okay, sorry, Caleb. Someone asked, how do we donate if you've already registered? Are there other ways for people to donate? So just to let you know about the donations, we started this after the first show. There are costs associated to putting this on. So the donations go back to the various costs that ISIS, Tati, and I bear to put this on until 2022. So if you already have a ticket, the only way that you can donate right now is to get a donation ticket. So some people have been canceling the free orders and then purchasing a donation ticket, $5 or $10. That's sort of the best way to do it without additional admin for us. So thank you for asking, and thank you very much. We don't want cost to be a barrier to participate, but if you would like to show appreciation for the time and energy that we're putting into this, we very much would appreciate that.
And just and Jerry's not going to put this out there because Jerry's a great person. But I do want to let you all know that there is a cost that is associated with this for both Jerry and for ISIS. And Jerry has upgraded her Zoom to facilitate having more people here. And she's also upgraded her StreamYard and streaming capabilities to be able to do the slow reads and sprints in a more efficient way. So you are seeing and actively participating in, when you participate in those things, you are participating in the platforms that are being used that do have a fee associated with them for the host. So I just wanted to put that out there. Love you.
Okay, thanks. All right, everyone. With that, thank you very much for being here again. Looking forward to seeing you all in March and seeing you for the slow read. So on behalf of Tati, Isis, and myself, you're the best. Thank you. We will release you into the rest of your Sundays, whatever time it is where you are. And then we'll just hang out here. We'll turn off the recording and we'll just wait to see if anybody wants to just party with us for about half an hour and chill out. Let your hair down. So have a great day, everyone.
Whoa, no sound. I'm waiting to see the live go away.
Joy, you can get Survivor by going to Lit Books and then scrolling till you get to Survivor, but also SistahSciFi has a search function. So I think it's on the top right-hand corner. You can just type in Survivor, and then the $10 electronic book will pop up so that you can purchase it.
I am checking.
To everybody who stuck it through on YouTube, thank you very much. We are going to close